everybody, this is Mike Westerdahl with CriticalBench.com. I've got Shawn Bud Lyte on the line right now. He's the owner of BMF Sports and BMFSports.com, BMFNutrition.com. He's very involved in promoting a lot of different sports. He used to be in the wrestling circuit, and he's here today to talk to us about sponsorship and how athletes can go about getting sponsored. And we're basically going to define the word sponsorship, because a lot of people, when they hear the word sponsorship, one of the definitions of sponsorship is someone who assumes responsibility for another person or group during a period of instruction, apprenticeship, or probation. And that's not the kind of sponsorship we're talking about. We're not talking about sponsoring a starving child that you're going to be taking care of. What we're talking about is a different form of sponsorship, and that's basically a company partnering with an athlete as a form of a sponsorship where basically the athlete is a form of advertising for the company. So as an athlete, if you get sponsored, you want to think of yourself as advertising, basically is what the sponsor company is spending money on. And I couldn't think of anybody better to talk about this subject than Shawn. So how's it going today, Shawn?
It's going great, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Sure. Glad to have you. Just to start it off here, what are some examples of athletes that could be looking for sponsorship? Like what kind of sports or what kind of people would be eligible or someone that should be looking for sponsorship?
Actually, Mike, any athlete of any sport, they believe they have something tangible to offer, a company should seek sponsorship. It doesn't matter if they're a big name mainstream athlete like an NFL or NBA, or someone in a rather obscure sport like powerlifting, curling. I understand kettlebells are used as sports now. As long as there's something about what the person does, their personality, the way they present themselves when they perform, that's something to offer, because beyond the sport itself, it's something that will grab the general public's attention. If you have someone who just lifts a weight, people can say, well, I do that all the time, what's the big deal? But if it's someone who lifts a weight with a certain personality, put out a certain vibe, they make it look exciting, they make themselves look interesting when they do it, they talk about it before and after of why it's significant. And then you'll have someone who is maybe a couch potato or not into weightlifting say, well, heck, this person's the same size as me, I can do that too, let me check it out. And that's something that will bring some attention not only to the sport, but whatever company is associated with that athlete.
So with some sports, let's take the NFL, like T.O., for example, Terrell Owens. I mean, he's got a really outgoing personality, makes a lot of commotion. Some people love him, some people hate him. But as far as the NFL goes, I mean, it's when the game time comes, you can't wear like company logos on our uniforms or anything like that. So it seems like a sponsorship of the actual sporting event would kind of be out of the question for an athlete. But when they step away from their competition, then he could go and promote products. Like I've seen him on the internet promoting different workout systems and stuff like that. So that could be a form of sponsorship, or is it sometimes called an endorsement? Like what's the difference between a sponsorship or an endorsement?
Well, a sponsorship is when a company or a brand is actually investing in the athlete to keep them doing what they're doing, to help them develop further as a winner, as a champion, or just as an active, progressive competitor. An endorsement is just where you pay someone to say, hey, I like this product. We'll look at bodybuilding magazines, and you know that a number of these pro bodybuilder guys did not get that look because they took this antioxidant, this protein.
So those would just be paid endorsements with a pro bodybuilder, probably a pro football player too, because they make millions of dollars. They don't really need someone helping them further their career.
Exactly.
Unless it's like Nike with Michael Jordan, that's still an endorsement, right?
That is an endorsement, or it originally started as a sponsorship, which grew into a partnership, and kind of an endorsement on the side, but they saw Michael Jordan as this rookie or young player who had a lot of potential, had his own style, who was really changing the nature, changing the face of the sport, and really got in on it. Michael Jordan was using Nike shoes before he got on with Nike, and that's something that a prospective sponsor looks for, someone who's using their product. say, okay, well, here's someone who's using our product. Let's do something to help take his mind off the expense or the stress of peripheral factors by providing them with this, and if it works out, we can grow together.
Okay. I think a lot of the people that are listening to this call are going to be more amateur athletes, probably bodybuilders, powerlifters like you mentioned, strongman competitors, even bike riders, all different. I guess you'd call them hobby sports. If you're not being paid to compete in these sports, there's just some small prize money. So I guess we want to gear towards more of these people, trying to help them out, how they can find sponsorship. These kinds of athletes, how do they know what they're worth as an athlete to a company?
Well, they would need to really assess themselves, their presence in the sport. How do they see themselves when they do a Google search for themselves or their sport? What comes up? Do they have something in their personality, something in their win-loss ratio that could be used? For example, we sponsor Dave Norton. He's a mountain bike rider, cyclist. He rode his bike across country back in '05, and he didn't do it straight across the United States. He started in Oregon, went down the Pacific coast, across the Gulf Coast, up the East Coast. And he did that, I believe, in about 4.5 months.
Wow.
Did it just because he wanted to do it. Dave is a rather reserved, quiet guy. Great personality, very outgoing when you know him, but not a party animal. But all along the way, every time he would stop, he would blog and take a lot of pictures, put it out there. Now, just about everyone can ride a bike. They understand the physical mechanics of it. They understand what it takes out of a person to ride distances. So to see this guy who rode across country the long way, say, oh, wow, that's something fabulous. Let me check this out. How did he do that? And then the people who are a bit more enterprising or see beyond the surface, well, who are the people who helped him do this? Or who are these people he's referring to, BMF Sports, Greenfish, and other companies that helped him do it? So while Dave is not one to jump up in front of a crowd, hey, look at me, I did this. He documents everything that he does to show, hey, I may not make big noise, but I make big moves. This is how I do it.
Okay.
And then you have someone like J.T. Hall, who is possibly the most sponsored man in powerlifting. Like other powerlifters, you haven't seen him on ESPN and Sports Illustrated or anything like that, but he is known throughout and beyond the sport around the world, not only because the man is a consistent first-place finisher, but he blogs a lot. He creates a lot of videos. I'm thinking probably 2 or 3 a week about his training, his sponsors, his competition. JT is definitely not in the sport for himself or for any self-serving purposes, and anyone who lends him even a bit of support gets 10 times as much in return from him.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely gets a lot of exposure, and like you said, he's not just out there asking for exposure, he's creating the exposure. There are people, I've talked to some strongman competitors, everybody knows who he is. He's on every forum, he's emailing everybody, he's extremely proactive in promoting himself. So maybe that's an important thing you were mentioning, is promoting yourself. As far as the sport itself, powerlifting doesn't get a lot of eyeballs. So, if people watching it or paying attention to it, it's kind of a niche market. So how would a powerlifter appeal to maybe a company that's not in powerlifting? What kind of things could they do to bring business? You mentioned a lot of things. Is there any other tips that you had for somebody?
One thing that powerlifting really, really needs is a meet director or promoter who's actually taken the sport to other markets, to markets that have demographics that actually spend the money, that support the sport that they watch, support the sport that they participate in. With, I think it was about 3 dozen powerlifting organizations in the United States or North America right now, no governing body, no set sanction or set of rules to go by or set standards, then the sport has become practically the same as backyard wrestling, where with anyone with a set of weights and a place to put it, is another federation. They can't handle someone else's rules. They can't win under someone else's rules, so they go out and do their own.
Until there's some sort of unification, you're just not going to get the mass amount of people interested in just one of those federations.
Exactly.
Is it the same with a lot of the other sports too, do you think, or does it all vary from sport to sport?
It varies from sport to sport, but it seems to be most prevalent in powerlifting. So while people are off making all their different federations, what they need to think about and realize is that each of these federations, each of these organizations is a brand. Each organization is a Pepsi, a Coke, an RC, a Fago, a Wildwood. They each have their own market, their own people playing favorites, and they need to really play up to those people and go out there and show why their brand should be preferred. Not better than another, but preferred, and why it should draw attention. But instead, they break off from each other and then think more into themselves, trying to pull attention away from even the sport itself. And that's something that I've talked to a number of promoters, a number of meet directors about changing to get out there. Get your events at bodybuilding expos or bodybuilding shows. Run things in conjunction with other events that actually draw attention.
Yeah, turn them into big sports expos like they had the Europa here in Orlando. They had everything going on. There was bodybuilding, fitness, strongman, bench pressing, MMA, all kinds of supplement vendor booths. I mean, there was something there for everybody, and it gave all the sports exposure.
Exactly, and if you don't have the money to go that big, then there are always small expos going on around the country. Florida is huge on multi-sport expos, especially, I believe, from the Orlando area up to the Panhandle. As a matter of fact, we're going to be at a mid-size one in September that I believe Max Muscle is putting on. And we're actually promoting an APA meet there. But even if there's not a pre-existing expo, then promoters or even athletes themselves could and should network with athletes and competitors in other sports that do get visibility to put something together. If not,
how do they find these companies, or where do you go to network? Would you say go to these events, or do you find them online? If you were someone looking for sponsorship, not even as a powerlifter, let's just say you were a bodybuilder, where would you go to try to find sponsors?
First and foremost, start with the company whose products you use and like.
Great tip.
We have a lot of people who inquire about sponsorship who have only heard of us through JT or Eric Talmadge, one of our sponsored athletes. They say, oh, we've used your product, we like your product, we'd like to be a part of it. They never name the product or give the product by name. And it's interesting when they say that they like our product, seeing how BMF Sports has been a business-to-business, service-only company until this year.
Right.
Our first product doesn't even hit market until late August.
It reminds me a lot of applying for a job. If you send a cover letter to a company and it just says, I want to work for your company, you don't even mention their company, you don't even say the job you're applying for, you don't know anything about them, and you're just talking about what you want, that's not going to be very appealing to the employer.
Absolutely. So we've had a few people who have said, well, I can bring you this type of recognition, take you into these markets, and really get you noticed, who actually delivered. Most don't, because when you say, okay, now you're sponsored, suddenly they don't produce, they do nothing. They think it's an employee-employer relationship, or, okay, I showed up, I'm wearing the paper hat, now pay me. But you have those few who say, wow, this person has taken a chance on sponsoring me, I'm not going to make myself look bad. So they'll get on the forums, they will go on the message boards, they will create blogs, YouTube videos, and just really get out there.
So basically, if you're sponsored as an athlete, you want to try to get exposure to your sponsor, get some eyeballs, spread the word about them. You can do that at your event, or if your event doesn't have a lot of exposure, there's so much stuff you can do online nowadays. I mean, everybody knows how to make a MySpace page, or you can set up a free blog where at blogger.com, Blogspot or something like that. There's free blogs you can set up. There's Facebook pages. Everybody hangs out on forums. Put your sponsor's signature link on there. Those are all things that are going to kind of put you as a favorite as far as sponsorship goes. It reminds me of a quote from John Kennedy: think not what your country can do for you, think what you can do for your country. Do you think that applies a lot towards acquiring sponsorship?
Absolutely does. When, again, sports sponsorship is mutual entrepreneurship, not an employee-employee relationship. And an athlete needs to bring more to the table than their appetite. They need to see it's more of a potluck thing. Okay, well, wow, you have the bread and the salad. Look at this. I've got some nice roast beef. Let's make a really good sandwich. And that's how the relationship really, really works. For example, we're working with Joe Morrow, who is a powerlifter, one of the top lightweights in the country, if not the world. And he's about to make the switch over to competitive bodybuilding. He's about to share it. And it's interesting in how that's developing because bodybuilding show promoters have been pursuing him to get into bodybuilding based on, how he looks. They've seen some of his videos and they love his personality and how it comes across. So what Joe is doing with us, he stays in contact on a regular basis. How about if I do this type of photo shoot? How about if I do this type of video? This would be an interview for Southern Muscle or someone else, but I'll be sure to wear your shirt, drop in your name a couple of times at key points. And that is ideal. That's a perfect way of getting it out there because the people who are now watching this good-looking guy with this great muscular body have visually are captivated, and now they want to hear, okay, who is it that helps him get to where he is?
Is that what you might call a crossover appeal? Somebody who can be marketable or draw attention outside of his own sport, but in other areas as well?
Most definitely. Crossover appeal is huge, and it's almost mandatory for any type of successful sponsorship. People may say, well, look at, T.O., he only does football. What's his crossover appeal? Sure, as far as sports, he only does football, but the guy has incredible personality. Anyone who's heard or seen him on the microphone, whether he's being interviewed or it's not game time and he's just sitting at home when they have the camera on him on NFL Sunday or joining commercials, even the promo for Sunday Night Football with Nicolette Sheridan. It shows that, wow, this guy's personality, he can do anything. He can pitch anything. Peyton Manning, who has a very quiet personality. You see him on the Sprint. And
he had a lot of commercials last year.
Yeah, the guy's just incredible.
He's just funny.
Exactly. And he has the humor. He has the presence. And advertisers, sponsors, and the buying public see, okay, there's more to this guy than just throwing a ball.
Right, so it's not just your sport or what you look like, it's also your personality.
Exactly. And so Joe Morrow, who is a quiet, soft-spoken guy, but you put him on a platform in front of the camera. The guy has just this huge, explosive personality. J.T. Hall, not very quiet, but conservative, reserved guy. And when you put him on the platform, or in front of the camera, you see why we call him prime time.
Right.
We were about to sign someone, and I probably shouldn't mention it yet because the ink's not on the paper, but we know it's a done deal, who's changing from one sport over to another. And he has been a big name in his current sport or his previous sport for more than a decade. He's already up to a great start in his new sport, and we're really excited about it. And in talking with him by phone recently, he was saying proactively a number of things that I would say to prospective sponsored athlete about the things that we look for, what needs to be done, how an athlete needs to get out there of their own volition, their own motivation, promote themselves as well as their sponsors. Unfortunately, in powerlifting, so many of the competitors don't want attention beyond the platform or beyond their numbers.
Right, that makes it a little tricky if you're a little bit shy and you just want to compete, but then when the competition's over, you kind of want to hide or not be in the public eye. That makes it hard to be sponsored when you're supposed to be representing the company. So I can definitely see that being a little bit of a problem. So I guess one tip would be, what are some things people could do to try to maybe come out of their shell or get some crossover appeal or get their personality more animated? I mean, I'm a shy person. Just doing these interviews feels funny to me sometimes, but the more I do it, the better I get at it. So maybe there's some things the athletes can practice as well. If they know what to do, maybe you can tell them some things they can do to make themselves more marketable or to attract more sponsors.
Well, you touched on it right there. The more you do, the better you get at it. And a number of athletes, or particularly in powerlifting, don't want to really get better much of anything other than their numbers. And if so, then hey, that's great. More power to you. No pun intended. Keep doing your thing. But if you're looking to get sponsored, you got to understand that if you're quiet about yourself, if you're quiet about your sponsors, then nobody knows. There's no business coming in. And if the business coming in, it pays out to you as the athlete. So if you're apprehensive about talking to people, if you're apprehensive about being on camera, then this is where we go back to the blog. Be active on the blog. Be active on the forums. Don't flame people. Offer something constructive each time you're out there. So you're and I won't say hiding, but you're quote-unquote safe behind the anonymity, practical anonymity of the internet, but still using your name, getting out there, and people get to know, okay, this is someone of value, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
So then when they start seeing you at the event, then they know how they can approach you, and that should make you a bit more comfortable.
For sure. And I think even if you are a shy person or modest, maybe some people, it's just not their personality to want to feel like they're bragging or showing off. So, if you're more a reserved athlete and that's just not what you want to do, I think there's still other ways you can contribute. What about just writing some articles for your sponsor that they can put on their website, or you do some photo shoots and just take pictures so they can use it in their advertisements. You could make some YouTube videos, just instructional stuff, demonstrating things or explaining about your sport. Anything that is going to help bring traffic or publicity or eyeballs to the sponsor is going to be useful. So hopefully whoever you're working with, whoever you find to sponsor you is going to, tell you what they're expecting, and you're not going to be left guessing what to do or how to go about. You have an official application on your site, right, that people have to fill out?
Yes, we do.
So it's pretty clear what you're expecting from them and what they're going to get. So it's going to be probably a case-by-case basis for every sponsorship place you're looking for, right? There's probably some of the sponsors' company's own fault that it's turned out this way. Some of them probably just pay out some money and don't expect anything, and then they wonder why their sponsorship program isn't working.
Exactly. Sponsorship is marketing. That's something that people really need to understand and remember. It is marketing. It is business. It is a business investment with the expectation of a return.
Now, what are some other choices you personally in your business, if you chose to spend money in different areas, what else could you advertise on to make money instead of sponsoring someone? Like, what are your other alternatives or choices? What are people competing against, actually?
What we've done, aside from athlete sponsorship, is event sponsorship. But we also do, before we started getting to our own physical product, we made our name by helping other companies, organizations, sports teams make a name for themselves. So it's a matter of the service we provide and the reputation that went along with it to get us out there. So BMF Sports, before we started doing powerlifting, we're doing bike sports, pro wrestling, combat sports, breakdancing, which is a much bigger sport than people realize. And it was in the underwriting and support of individual events in different areas that we started to make our name. So it was with that people were able to see, okay, this is what we need to do to work with BMF Sports for us to succeed. And when we succeed, they succeed.
Right.
And it's the same thing that can transfer over to athletes as well. So it can be anything from developing branding and licensing for different customers. In this case, it could be the athlete with their own name brand of apparel or accessories, or as we've done in the past, trinkets, tchotchkes, things like that for different organizations and their events.
Interesting.
So whether or not your name is out there as the sponsor primarily and initially, showing that you have the support and resources to really promote whoever it is that in turn is promoting your brand is something that you can do further proficiently and effectively.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of different avenues to explore. I know in my business I have some choices of what I could do. Whether sponsoring athletes, I could run an advertisement in a magazine and see what the return investment is on that. I know how many people look at the magazine and how many people see it. So, I mean, that's something I could do instead of sponsoring someone. So when I sponsor somebody, something else gives up. Some form of advertising is dropped so that I can sponsor this person. So that's why it needs to be a two-way relationship, which I think we've made pretty clear throughout this interview.
And something I found in advertising, especially in niche sports, powerlifting has, I believe, one magazine now. They had two, and Monster Muscle was a fabulous magazine. Used to look forward to it, and I actually advertised in it regularly, and it was rather unfortunate to see it go. But when you have only one magazine in a sport, and it's not widely available, and they don't have a website, then advertising in it, you really have to ask yourself, is this a wise investment, especially when you know that powerlifting audience is maybe 1/10 or 1/8 of your overall target demographic. So in these cases, that's when you start moving to web advertising, not powerlifting specific websites, but strength sport websites. Criticalbench.com, of course, get in with Alan at APT, and a number of other companies who don't just appeal to one sport or one part of one sport.
Do you have any case studies of somebody who's gone above and beyond for BMF Sports as far as representing the company?
JT Hall.
Yeah, you touched on him. Anybody else? He's your favorite, huh?
One of. He's been with us for, I believe it's going on 3 years now, just about. And it's never been anything but positive and progressive. But lately, working with Eric Talmont has been fabulous. Through his promotion of Raw Unity Meat, as well as his metabolic typing business, he's bringing a lot of traffic, a lot of attention to BMF Sports through his metabolic typing and Check-Out Training Forum. We produce his Check-Out Training DVDs for him and distribute those as part of the sponsorship as well.
Yeah, he's extremely knowledgeable, and he just loves helping people. I think that's the thing when you think of the sponsorship requirements as a chore. It's got to be something you like doing anyway. I mean, if you're on the internet posting on forums and answering emails and writing articles and doing things, you're probably going to fit perfectly with somebody as a sponsored athlete anyway. And these are all things, whether Eric was sponsored or not, I believe he'd be out here doing this stuff anyway. So he just loves what he does. He loves helping people, and he's definitely a great guy to have on board.
He really appreciates the support that he gets, and he'll turn around and do even more for the people who are backing him on it, whether it's a Raw Unity sponsor or with his metabolic typing. He's really out there and will let people know, okay, this is my preference. These are the things that I know, understand, and do as a professional. But in keeping with that, or to not conflict with that, these are some of the companies or products I recommend you look at that share the same principles that I do. So he's not just a paid talking head that here's some money, I'm going to talk up your product. He would never do that. If something doesn't have integrity, he won't back.
He wouldn't even do paid endorsements.
No, not at all.
He doesn't want to promote supplements or do things unless he knows that's the right supplement for the person taking it and things like that. So.
And then we have Jeff Wilson. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that was great.
And then we have Jeff Wilson, who is a writer and aficionado of endurance training for sports, who does training for grip competitions with the heavy grippers ripping stacks of cards, bending nails.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't even know they had those.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge...
I know they had arm wrestling grip competitions. That sounds something I might have to get into one day.
Yeah, there's something, especially on the East Coast, it seems it's really, really big. Bending nails, straightening out horseshoes, which I didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
And a number of other things. But he writes a number of articles for different online and print magazines. And every one he's wearing our shirt. Our name is in his signature line. It's mentioned throughout the article without being a blatant promotion or over promotion.
It's not like holding up the Zions can after a UFC fight. It's not that obvious.
Exactly. And then we have Carol and Bobby Ann Myers down in Florida. Carol Ann, for years, has been a top powerlifter, figure competitor, and bodybuilder. And so far this year, she has just been cleaning up. She was in, I believe, 2 bodybuilding figure shows, which she won overall in both. And in one, she won first place in the middleweight overall in Miss Northwest Florida.
Wow.
So, and her husband, Bobby Myers, is one of the smartest men I've ever met, especially in sports. I call him Bobby the Brain because of that, are really, really good and proactive and cooperative in working with us and getting BMF Sports out there as much as we get her out there through building her website, promoting her different events, creating postcards, posters, and everything like that. And it's just fabulous.
Yeah.
And these are things that, with all of them, we didn't ask them to do this. These are things that they came to us saying, this is what we can do for you.
That's great. Well, that kind of leads into the next question. I was going to say, what are 5 tips right now somebody could do to go ahead and find a sponsor or get sponsored? And I think you just touched on 2 of them. One is tell them what you can do for them, what you have to offer. Number 2, you mentioned having a website. You don't have to pay somebody a couple $1,000s to make you a website. You can go set up a free blog and just have some information about yourself. It's a place you can mention your sponsors and have links. I'll leave the last 3 tips to you, bud. What are 3 more things that an athlete can do to get sponsored, regardless of what sport they're in?
Again,
putting you on the spot here?
No, again, use the sponsors' products. Use them because you like them. Use them because you believed in them. Not because, well, if I buy one of these and then I tell them I bought it and I show them a picture of me with this, they're going to send me $100 more of it. 2, be good and consistent at what you do. If you're not a consistent first place finisher, that's not a problem. But if you are a consistent 6th place, then yeah, that is a problem. Because we do live in a society where it is about performance. Whether or not winning, winners are preferred, but you have to show that you have what it takes to be at or near the top. If you're near the top, it shows you have that potential to keep going. Cool. And finally, something that most people overlook, communication. Stay in contact with your sponsor or prospective sponsor. Don't just send a two-line inquiry and then wait. Don't get signed and then sit back and do nothing where they have to chase you down for your latest article, your latest blog post, your event results.
So be proactive.
Definitely proactive.
For sure. I mean, these businesses, some of them have, an entire staff person dedicated to just a sponsorship program, but a lot of businesses are, small businesses with a smaller staff, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and they don't want to be babysitting or chasing people down to be asking them for things that they should be doing. That's just not going to be worthwhile. So, definitely be proactive. Like Bud said, that's a huge tip. So, anything else you wanted to add in? I think that's covered a lot of ground today.
Well, I just want to thank you for this opportunity, Mike. I really do appreciate it. I was rather surprised that you wanted to do this. I didn't think that either I or BMF Sports was that significant in the sport, but every time I think that something comes up that, well, I won't say proves otherwise, but it shows that people do know who we are, what we're doing, and appreciate it. And I
definitely
appreciate them.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to share the information. Hopefully people can utilize some of these tips, and maybe they can get sponsored by BMF Sports too, but make sure you follow the guidelines on the website and go out and look for some new sponsors, and hopefully we gave you guys some information that you can use. And also, I just did some Googling on this before the interview, and there's plenty of information about this online. Just type into Google what to do to get sponsored in sports. And there's all kinds of articles and suggestions and tips and things you can do. But definitely be proactive, get yourself out there, and no one's going to come to your door and knock on the door and ask for you. If you want something, go out there and get it. Worst thing that can happen is somebody says no. But, that's just part of life. Just keep working at it, keep trying, and eventually some doors will open up if you have the right attitude about it. So thanks a lot, Bud, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you very soon. Everybody go visit bmfsports.com and bmfnutrition.com. Check out some of the sponsored people on his site and see what they're doing to help represent the company. All right, Shawn, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mike.